The keeper's shift. The secret of the zoo theory lies in the fact that we scan the cosmos for signals, expecting to hear music or mathematical codes, but in reality, we are searching for noise in an empty room while being watched through a one-way mirror. The true mystery is not the absence of life, but the artificial silence. Imagine that our entire history, from the pyramids to the moon landings, is merely a controlled experiment to study the social dynamics of primates in a closed ecosystem. The real shock comes with the realization that the anomalous phenomena we call UFOs are not visits from explorers, but scheduled inspections by veterinarians or park rangers. They do not initiate contact not because we are uninteresting, but because direct intervention would ruin the purity of the sample. We consider ourselves masters of the planet, but in truth, we do not even own our own lives. Our entire solar system is surrounded by an invisible barrier, an electromagnetic fence that cuts us off from the rest of the galaxy. We live in an information bubble. When astronauts gaze into the black abyss, they see not stars, but a projection designed to keep the denizens of the enclosure from panicking. The most terrifying part of this theory is the question of what happens to the animals when the project is deemed a failure or when the zoo's funding runs out. We are not looking for brothers in intelligence. We are looking for the exit from a cage, the keys to which are held by those who do not even consider us worthy of conversation. We are mere scenery in someone else's game, an exhibit whose value is determined solely by how predictable our behavior remains. If we become too loud or too dangerous, the keeper will simply turn off the lights in our pavilion, and the universe will not even notice the disappearance of the pale blue that so proudly called itself the center of creation. Chapter 1. Perfect Order. The morning sun paints the suburban expanse of Willow Creek, Wyoming, with a meticulously curated golden hue, each ray seeming to fall with premeditated precision upon the manicured lawns. These stretches of impossibly green grass are trimmed to a uniform, almost artificial height, bordering sidewalks that curve with an unnatural, yet aesthetically pleasing symmetry. Each house, a replica of its neighbor with cream-colored siding and dark shingled roofs, stands in perfect alignment, their front doors equidistant from the street, creating a visual rhythm that suggests a blueprint rather than organic growth. Children, identically dressed in vibrant school uniforms, glide silently on bicycles down the pristine asphalt, their movements synchronized, devoid of the usual chaotic exuberance of youth. Neighbors emerge from their homes at the exact same moment, retrieving newspapers that lie rolled and plastic-wrapped, mirroring each other in a tableau of uncanny order. Inside his garage, a sanctuary of flickering screens and ancient electronics, David hunches over a workbench strewn with circuit boards, exposed wires, and an array of vintage oscilloscopes. The air is thick with the faint, metallic scent of heated solder and ozone. His current focus is a large, custom-built monitor, its screen displaying a waterfall of green alphanumeric characters that scroll endlessly. The hum of his cooling fans provides a constant, almost hypnotic drone, occasionally punctuated by a sharp, rhythmic click that emanates from a jury-rigged antenna on his rooftop. This clicking is not random static but a pattern, a pulse that David has been tracking for weeks, always just beneath the threshold of conventional detection. As he observes the data, a subtle anomaly appears on his screen. A brief, almost imperceptible distortion in the signal, a ripple in the otherwise perfect flow of information. Concurrently, outside, a colossal, invisible presence passes over the town, its sheer mass bending the very light, creating a fleeting, shimmering shadow that is too vast to be cast by any known cloud formation. This shadow, though unseen directly, causes a momentary, almost imperceptible darkening of the morning sun, a barely there flicker in the ambient light. Miles away, within the stark, antiseptic confines of the Willow Creek Medical Center, Emma, a nurse, moves with practiced efficiency through a labyrinth of white-tiled hallways. The air here is perpetually cool, carrying a faint, sterile scent of antiseptic that masks something less clinical, almost synthetic. She stands over a new patient, a man lying prone and unresponsive, his face placid, his eyes distant. As Emma meticulously checks his vitals, her gloved fingers brush against a barely visible indentation just behind his left ear. Under the skin, nestled just beneath the surface, she detects a minuscule, crystalline implant. This implant, a transparent shard no larger than a grain of rice, emits a faint, almost subliminal violet glow that pulsates in a synchronized rhythm with the very clicks David is detecting on his distant equipment. The patient's medical records indicate no prior surgical procedures that could account for such an object, deepening Emma's quiet unease. As the camera slowly ascends from David's garage, then from Emma's clinic, the individual details of the town begin to blur. The precise rows of houses, the synchronized movements of the cars on the streets, and the rhythmic patterns of daily life coalesce into a grander, more abstract design. From an extreme high-altitude perspective, Willow Creek transforms into an intricate, self-contained microchip, its streets like circuits, its buildings like components. The entire landscape appears as a meticulously arranged biological experiment, a colony of ants moving with programmed precision within a carefully delimited enclosure. The horizon itself is not a natural curve but a subtly glowing, almost imperceptible dome, a vast, transparent barrier that subtly distorts the distant stars, revealing a faint, almost crystalline grid-like pattern etched across the deep blue of the sky. This grid, a hidden layer of engineering, defines the boundary of their existence, silently containing the carefully cultivated habitat beneath, a perfectly ordered world overseen by an unseen, watchful eye. Chapter 2: Leak in the Dome. The desert night outside the Wyoming state line is heavy with an unnatural stillness that seems to press against the eardrums like deep water. David drives his battered pickup truck along a dirt track toward the abandoned quarry, his knuckles white against the steering wheel as the radio in the dashboard emits a rhythmic, guttural clicking that overrides every local station. Beside him in the passenger seat, Emma stares out at the darkness, her hands clutching a small glass vial containing the crystalline implant she extracted earlier that day. The object within the glass pulses with a frantic, bioluminescent violet light, casting flickering shadows against the interior of the truck that look like skeletal fingers. As they arrive at the edge of the jagged limestone pit, the air begins to vibrate with a low-frequency hum that rattles the teeth in their skulls. The sky above the quarry is no longer a solid black void but has become a swirling vortex of refracted light, as if the very atmosphere is melting into a liquid state. In the center of the depression, a massive object begins to phase into reality, shimmering between invisibility and a terrifying, oily solidity. It is a probe of immense proportions, shaped like a flattened ovoid and constructed from a material that looks like a fusion of polished obsidian and translucent membrane. It does not land so much as it anchors itself in the air, a few feet above the dusty ground. The surface of the craft is covered in thousands of microscopic, lidless apertures that function like cameras, all swiveling in unison to track the movement of the approaching vehicle. David and Emma step out into the biting wind, their silhouettes dwarfed by the sheer scale of the extraterrestrial machinery. Suddenly, a rupture appears in the sky directly above the probe, a jagged tear in the fabric of the stars that reveals a glimpse of the terrifying truth hidden behind the celestial curtain. Through this leak in the atmospheric dome, they see a segment of a gargantuan mechanical arm, miles wide and composed of dull, industrial alloys, reaching down from a space that should be empty. The probe beneath the tear begins to project holographic lattices into the air, displaying high-resolution biological blueprints of every living soul in the town, scrolling through DNA sequences and neural maps at a blinding speed. Emma holds up the vial, and the probe reacts instantly, emitting a thin, needle-like beam of emerald light that scans the stolen technology. The ground beneath their feet begins to turn translucent, revealing a complex network of fiber-optic cables and pulsating nutrient pipes running miles deep into the crust of the earth, servicing the artificial habitat they once called home. The realization hits with the force of a physical blow. The quarry is not a geological feature but a maintenance hatch, and they are currently standing on the threshold of the enclosure's inner workings. The sky continues to glitch, the stars flickering on and off like dying light bulbs, exposing the dark, cold superstructure of the laboratory that encompasses their entire world. The wind carries a metallic, ozone scent that smells of a factory rather than a forest. A massive gravitational shift occurs, causing loose stones to float upward toward the probe, and for a moment, The two humans feel the terrifying weightlessness of being nothing more than loose biological matter in a sterile, controlled environment. The probe's central eye opens wide, reflecting the two tiny figures in its dark lens, recording their fear as a data point for a report they will never read. The shimmering tear in the sky begins to knit itself back together with a shower of sparks, but the image of the cold, metallic void beyond remains burned into their retinas. The horizon itself seems to wobble, the distant mountains appearing as thin, painted cardboard cutouts under the harsh, artificial glare of the probe's sensors. Everything they ever believed to be natural is revealed as a meticulous fabrication, a cage designed with such precision that the inmates mistook the bars for the horizon. Chapter 3. The Keeper's Instructions. The heavy silence of the underground bunker in the Nevada desert is broken only by the hum of cooling fans and the rhythmic clicking of archaic tape drives. David and Emma stand in a narrow hallway lined with reinforced concrete, following a high-ranking military officer whose shadow stretches long and distorted against the flickering fluorescent lights. They are led into a central command hub that resembles a cathedral of surveillance, where hundreds of monitors display grainy, black and white footage spanning decades of human history. On one screen, the mushroom cloud of a 1945 nuclear test blossoms in slow motion, but the camera angle is impossible, looking straight down from a height no aircraft of that era could reach. Beside it, footage of the 1968 riots and the fall of the Berlin Wall play on a continuous loop, overlaid with complex mathematical grids and flowing lines of alien script that track the emotional spikes and heat signatures of the crowds. The officer stops before a massive steel table where a physical leather-bound ledger lies open, its pages filled with handwritten notes in English interleaved with translucent sheets of etched crystal. These documents, marked with the internal designation Zoo Management Protocol, describe humanity not as a nation or a civilization, but as a specific strain of biomass within a controlled environment. David leans over the table, his eyes scanning a series of demographic charts where major historical tragedies are listed as culling events or population density corrections. He sees a detailed map of the United States divided into sectors that correspond to dietary habits, reproductive rates, and resistance levels to psychological stressors. There are no mentions of politics or ideology, only data points regarding the health and stability of the herd. In a corner of the room, a large glass tank contains a preserved specimen of a creature that resembles a shifting arrangement of geometric shards, a silent sentinel that government officials have worshipped and obeyed for generations. The realization settles in the room like dust. The leaders of the world are not conspirators in a grand galactic alliance, but merely senior janitors and head shepherds tasked with keeping the livestock calm and productive. The air in the bunker feels recycled and stale, a microenvironment within a microenvironment. On the main tactical screen, a global heat map shows the flickering lights of cities, and as David watches, a cursor controlled by an unseen hand highlights a metropolitan area, bringing up a menu of environmental adjustments that could trigger a drought or an outbreak with a single command. The military personnel in the room move with a hollow, robotic efficiency, their eyes reflecting the blank stare of people who have long since accepted their role as cattle dogs for a master they cannot comprehend. The visual of the American flag hanging on the wall feels mocking and hollow, a colorful rag intended to distract the inhabitants of the pen while the watchers calculate the caloric output of their labor. Every piece of paper in the room is a testament to a managed existence, a manual on how to maintain the illusion of freedom just enough to prevent the biomass from rotting through despair. The flickering monitors cast a pale, sickly glow on Emma's face as she realizes that every prayer, every revolution, and every scientific breakthrough was anticipated and filed away in a cabinet decades before it happened. The bunker itself is revealed to be a viewing gallery, a place where the elite are permitted to watch the feeding troughs from a safe distance, provided they follow the instructions etched into the crystal sheets without question or delay. Chapter 4. The Awakening Signal. The desert wind howls across the Mojave, carrying a fine grit that scours the rusted metal of the massive, decommissioned satellite dish where David and Emma have taken their final stand. The structure looms over them like a skeletal giant, its weathered white surface peeling away to reveal dark, carbon fiber ribs that hum with an unnatural resonance. David works frantically at a makeshift terminal, his fingers dancing over keys as he bridges the gap between the captured alien technology and the Earth's broadcast infrastructure. He is attempting to broadcast the raw, unedited data from the bunker, the truth of the fences, the culling charts, and the images of the watchers, into every television, smartphone, and radio within the local sector of the enclosure. As the signal begins to upload, the sky above the desert undergoes a violent, catastrophic transformation. It does not rain, but the blue expanse of the afternoon starts to shatter and pixelate, revealing the dark, cold vacuum behind the projected atmosphere. Massive jagged streaks of static ripple across the horizon, as if a monumental screen is failing under the pressure of a power surge. The sun, once a warm and nurturing orb, flickers with a harsh, flickering fluorescence, casting long, erratic shadows that jump and stutter across the parched earth. Emma stands on the gantry of the dish, looking out at the distant shimmering lights of the city, which are now blinking in and out of existence as the regional server struggles to maintain the illusion. Birds fall from the sky in mid-flight, their biological programming interrupted by the feedback loop of David's broadcast. The very air begins to smell of scorched copper and ozone, the scent of a dying motherboard. People in the distant streets stop their cars and emerge into the flickering light, their faces illuminated by the frantic glow of their devices, which now scream the truth in a language of light and symbols. The dome's security protocols react with terrifying mechanical indifference. A series of massive, invisible pillars of light descend from the zenith, striking the desert floor with the force of tectonic shifts, trying to isolate the transmitter. The mountains on the horizon begin to wobble and blur, losing their texture and revealing the flat, gray scaffolding of the containment wall. Every movement David and Emma make feels sluggish, as if the physics of the world are being throttled to save processing power. The broadcast reaches its peak, and for a fleeting moment, the entire sky turns into a mirror, reflecting the terrified faces of the population back at them, before the reflection breaks to show the cold, indifferent machinery of the watchers hovering just inches above the clouds. The sound of the world is no longer wind and sand, but a deafening, digital screech of a system crash. The heroes stand at the center of this collapsing reality, their silhouettes stark against the strobing sky, witnesses to the moment the livestock finally looked up and saw the bars of the cage glowing red with the heat of their own realization. Chapter 5: Beyond the Glass. The reality of the world dissolves completely as the satellite dish and the desert floor are pulled upward by a silent, irresistible gravitational tide. David and Emma find themselves standing on a transparent platform that slices through the final layers of the flickering, pixelated sky, emerging from the warm, hazy atmosphere into the crystalline silence of the true void. As they ascend, the Earth begins to shrink below them, but it does not appear as a free-floating planet in a vast solar system. Instead, it is revealed to be a perfect, glowing sphere encased in a massive, hexagonal glass frame. This sphere is just one of an infinite number of identical globes, arranged in a staggering geometric lattice that stretches in every direction for millions of miles. They are inside a celestial gallery of unimaginable scale, a warehouse of worlds where each globe contains a different era, a different climate, or a different experiment in biology. Between these glass worlds, gargantuan mechanical entities move with the slow, terrifying grace of deep-sea leviathans. These watchers are not made of flesh or metal, but of shifting, translucent planes of light and complex fractal patterns that defy human perspective. One such entity glides past their platform, its body a cathedral of humming geometry that vibrates with the power of a dying star. The entity does not acknowledge them, as a human scientist might not acknowledge a single bacteria on a glass slide. Looking around, David and Emma see other spheres being serviced by swarms of smaller, insect-like drones that inject streams of glowing gas into the artificial atmospheres or extract samples of biomass with surgical precision. To their left, a sphere containing a world of endless oceans is being drained into a massive vat, while to their right, a globe filled with a dense, prehistoric jungle is being subjected to a controlled flash freeze. The absolute scale of the operation renders their previous lives, their struggles, and their very species utterly insignificant. The air on the platform is thin and tastes of sterile chemicals, and the only sound is the low-frequency throb of the gallery's life support systems. They see the stars they once gazed at from their bedroom windows. They are merely tiny, glowing LEDs embedded in the outer shell of their containment unit. The vastness of space is nothing more than the dark, cold floor of a cosmic laboratory. As the platform stops before a towering wall of light, they see their own reflections in a surface of polished obsidian, realizing that they have been brought here not as ambassadors, but as anomalies to be inspected before the system is restored to its default settings. Chapter 6. Final Reset. The colossal, shimmering entity, a being of pure, shifting light and impossible geometry, extends a hand of nebulous energy toward the Earth's sphere. It moves with an ancient, unhurried grace that suggests eons of observation and maintenance. David and Emma stand frozen on the transparent platform, not out of fear, but from a profound, existential awe that has stripped them of all agency. They are no longer individuals but data points, their consciousnesses resonating with the final, cold understanding of their place in this cosmic hierarchy. The entity's touch on the glass of their world is like a whisper that reverberates through their very souls. Not a sound, but a systemic command. A wave of shimmering energy washes over the Earth's sphere, and they watch, helpless, as the intricate patterns of human civilization, the glowing cities, the delicate web of roads, the green swaths of cultivated land, begin to blur and melt, not destroyed, but subtly altered. The energy feels not malevolent, but surgical, a dispassionate cleansing. As the wave passes, the entity's touch intensifies, and a soft, humming light envelopes their specific sphere. David and Emma feel an overwhelming sense of warmth, a feeling of absolute peace that erases the terror and the knowledge they had just acquired. Their memories, their defiance, their very individual essences are carefully, meticulously unwoven from their minds, like threads pulled from a tapestry. They are being reset, not punished. Their final, fading glance at each other is one of serene oblivion, devoid of recognition, merely two components of the same biological unit returning to default. The colossal hand then retracts, and the Earth's sphere, now pristine and glowing with renewed vibrancy, takes its place back within the infinite lattice of worlds. The previous disturbances, the pixelated sky, the failing infrastructure, the flickering sun, all are instantly rectified, replaced by a seamless, unblemished facade. The gallery itself appears to sigh, a barely perceptible shift in the ambient hum of its machinery, before settling back into its silent, eternal vigil. Moments later, David stirs. He is in his garage, exactly as he was at the beginning of the previous cycle. The old oscilloscopes hum with their familiar static, the green lines of data flowing across the monitor in an unremarkable rhythm. He takes a sip from a mug of lukewarm coffee, feeling a fleeting, almost melancholic sense of familiarity, a vague echo of something lost, yet utterly unrecallable. He glances at a half-finished radio transmitter on his workbench, a momentary urge to tinker, to search for a hidden frequency, passing just as quickly as it came. He dismisses it as a passing thought, a lingering residue of a dream he cannot quite grasp. Across town, Emma walks through the sterile white corridors of the clinic. She reviews patient charts, her movements precise and efficient. She notices a slight, almost imperceptible scar behind a new patient's ear, but chalks it up to an old injury, a minor detail. A fleeting sense of déjà vu washes over her as she looks at the patient's tranquil, vacant eyes, but the sensation is mild, easily ignored. The day unfolds with a predictable rhythm, each minute indistinguishable from the last. The camera begins its ascent, pulling away from David's garage, then from Emma's clinic, lifting past the perfectly manicured lawns and the synchronized movements of the suburbanites below. The town becomes a tiny, ordered pattern, then a speck of light, then a single luminous point on the surface of the Earth. The perspective continues to recede, moving past the atmosphere, through the vastness of the artificial cosmos, until the entire planet is a gleaming marble, now nestled perfectly within its hexagonal frame in the infinite gallery. The colossal hand, now glowing with a soft, internal luminescence, reaches out again, but this time not to touch. It merely hovers, a silent guardian. The Earth sphere is no longer an anomaly. It is a meticulously restored exhibit, ready for another cycle of observation. A small, transparent data tag materializes next to the sphere, emblazoned with alien script and a simple, unambiguous label. Experiment 402. Status: awareness achieved. Environment reset required. The tag glows faintly, a testament to the brief, fleeting moment of collective consciousness. The unseen entity, the ultimate caretaker of this galactic zoo, turns from the gallery. A colossal, indistinct form recedes into the profound darkness that lines the edges of the universe. With a barely audible hum, a switch is flipped, plunging the entire vast expanse of the gallery of worlds into a profound, suffocating darkness. The tiny, glowing spheres, each a world of intricate life and desperate struggles, become mere pinpricks of light, fading into oblivion as the cosmic caretaker concludes another shift, leaving the collection of countless Earths to their silent, unknowing slumber until the next scheduled awakening. The universe outside the gallery remains indifferent, oblivious to the countless lives reset, renewed, and patiently awaiting their next scripted act.